My family mocked me for rescuing a dog, until it saved me from them. They called me soft, weak, emotional. $1,800 gone on vet bills, training, flea meds. They sneered at overstuffing and wine. Thanksgiving, 17 people, 0 respect. They locked Rocky in the garage, like he didn't matter. But 2 nights later, he growled before the lock turned. My brothers weren't there to talk, and I wasn't there to forgive. What happened next broke everything wide open. You ever see something so broken, so forgotten, that it mirrors everything you've been trying to hide? That was Rocky. It started on a Monday, cold as hell for Dayton. I was walking home from my shift at the warehouse, boots soaked, back aching, wondering if I had enough left in my gas tank, and in my life, to keep pushing. I took a shortcut behind Samson's auto junkyard. That's when I saw him. He was crouched behind a rusted-out Honda Civic frame. A mutt, brown with patches of black, one eye cloudy, ribs like piano keys sticking through torn skin. I don't know what made me stop. Maybe it was the way he didn't flinch when I knelt. He just looked at me, like he'd already given up. I should have walked away. That's what I'd been taught. Toughen up. Move on. Don't rescue strays, whether they're animals or feelings. But I didn't walk. I took off my hoodie, scooped him up, careful, because he winced like someone had taught him to fear hands, and wrapped him like a kid. I had $87 to my name, and 30 of it went to the cab that took us both to the emergency vet. They asked if he was mine. I said he is now. That night, I slept on the floor with him next to me, shaking every few minutes in his sleep, probably dreaming of whoever hurt him before. I told myself it was temporary, just until he healed, just until I could find a rescue, just until I figured my own life out. But I already knew. Rocky wasn't leaving. He was the only thing in my apartment that didn't judge me, didn't bark orders, didn't ask me why I wasn't further along. By Friday, the vet bill had ballooned to $1,800. Infection, shots, surgery to remove a piece of glass in his leg. I drained my savings. Every dollar I had put aside for new gear, for fixing up the car, for maybe, just maybe, finally getting out of the warehouse. Gone. When I told my dad and brothers, they didn't even pretend to hide their disgust. You're soft now, Brad laughed. What's next? Knitting sweaters for it. You letting a dog replace your spine? Mike asked. Mom would roll in her grave. And my dad? He just shook his head and said, I raised you better. No, you didn't. You raised me to be afraid of you. But I didn't say that. I didn't say anything. I just looked down at Rocky, his head bandaged, tongue sticking out, finally asleep without flinching, and I decided something. I didn't owe them an explanation. They didn't know what it felt like to see your own reflection in a creature who'd been kicked too many times to fight back. They thought saving a dog made me weak. They had no idea what strength looked like. That weekend, I started training again. Just light shadowboxing in my kitchen while Rocky watched from a pile of blankets. Every jab, every hook, I whispered to myself, for me, for him, for us. What I didn't know then, that same dog they laughed at would one day stand between me and the people who said they loved me. And when it came down to it, he'd be the only one who didn't flinch. But we'll get there. Because this story, it's just getting started. I didn't want to go to Thanksgiving. I'll start there. I got the invite through a group text from my dad. Real warm message. Dinner at 6. Don't bring drama. No, hey, how are you? No, glad you're still breathing, son. Just the expectation that I'd show up, shut up, and sit down like always. The kind of invite where you're not really invited, you're summoned. But I was tired of dodging them. I thought maybe, just maybe, Rocky could change things. Show them I wasn't falling apart. I was rebuilding. I bought him a bandana. Navy blue, like the one I used to wear when I boxed Golden Gloves in high school. He looked sharp, proud even. He sat in the passenger seat like he knew this was a big moment. We pulled up to my dad's house. Paint peeling, rusted mailbox. Same truck in the driveway that hasn't moved since I left for community college. My brothers were already inside. I could hear them before I even reached the porch. Bet he brings that mutt, Mike laughed. Better keep the ham away from it, Brad snorted. Then came the punchline. Think it'll beg like he used to? I should have left right then. I should have spun the wheel and driven away with Rocky in the wind. But I made it this far. I told myself I had the right to be there. That maybe they'd see I wasn't some sad, broken version of their little brother. I was someone with fight left in him. Inside, the air was thick with gravy, booze, and tension. My dad sat at the head of the table, eyes cold. No, hey son. No smile. just to stare at Rocky like he was carrying a disease. Can't believe you brought that thing, he muttered. He's not a thing, I said. His name's Rocky. And he's family. That line didn't land well. Brad stood up, grinning. Family? You lost your mind, Jace? He's cleaner than any of you. I snapped, instantly regretting it. My sister-in-law made a dramatic, gagging noise. Mike chuckled. Dad pointed toward the back. Garage, he said. Put him in there. He's making the kids nervous. The kids are outside, I argued. And Rocky's quiet. He won't bother anyone. I said garage, he barked. I should have said no. Should have grabbed my plate and Rocky's leash and left right then. But I was tired, and I was still clinging to hope that I could eat one meal with my family without being humiliated. So I walked Rocky out to the garage. Cold. Smelled like gas and mildew. There was a half-deflated punching bag in the corner, the one I used to train on when I was 17. I tied Rocky to a folded chair, kissed his forehead, and shut the door. Dinner was hell. They talked about jobs, investments, Mike's new boat, bought on a loan he'll never pay back. Every joke circled back to me. Quiet digs. Jace, remember when you used to have ambition? He used to hit hard. Now he cries over dogs. And my dad? He laughed. At all of it. I stared at my plate. Couldn't taste the food. Couldn't feel my hands. My ears were burning. I kept glancing toward the garage door, wondering if Rocky was okay, if he knew I left him behind. Then I heard the whimper. I bolted up. Mike grabbed my shoulder and shoved me down. Sit down, man. You're ruining the vibe. Brad stood beside him, blocking me like we were in a ring. Except this time, there was no bell to save me. Only my boiling blood. Move, I said, low and sharp. Or what? Brad grinned. You gonna cry again? I don't remember throwing the punch. I just remember Mike slamming me against the fridge and my dad shouting for someone to call the damn cops if he doesn't stop acting like a lunatic. I tore through them, flung the garage door open, and there was Rocky, tangled in the leash, trembling, one paw bloody from scraping the concrete. That's when I realized they didn't just lock him in there. They kicked him. Something in me snapped. I grabbed Rocky, unhooked the leash, and didn't look back. Not when they shouted. Not when my dad threatened to put the dog down next time. I just walked, shaking with rage and shame and something deeper I couldn't name. I didn't sleep that night, but Rocky curled up next to me like nothing had happened, like he trusted me to keep him safe, even when the world tried to rip him apart. That night, I made a promise. They mocked the part of me that could love, that could nurture, that could protect, but they forgot. I still knew how to fight, and next time they came swinging, I wouldn't flinch. It started with a dream. One of those sharp, vivid ones you can't quite place. Something about running, someone chasing me through a dark hallway. I woke up to Rocky growling, low and steady, like thunder under the floorboards. I checked the time. 2:43 a.m. Rocky stood by the door, his ears back, tail still. That growl wasn't a fluke. I slipped out of bed, heart pounding, and grabbed the aluminum bat I kept by the fridge. Old habit from living in crummy rentals near the highway. But this wasn't a stranger creeping around outside. This was personal. I stepped to the peephole. Nothing. Then I heard it. A click. Soft. Like a key turning the wrong way. Followed by a whisper. I told you it was this one. Another voice. Familiar. Slurred. Mike. I froze. My lungs forgot how to work. And then, push it. I didn't wait. I flicked the deadbolt, flung the door open fast. And there they were, Mike and Brad, both wide-eyed like kids caught stealing candy. Except this was no prank. Brad had a tire iron. Mike held a flashlight like a club. What the hell are you doing? I shouted. Mike stepped forward. We came to talk. At 3 in the morning? With that. I pointed at the iron. Brad shrugged. You swung first on Thanksgiving, Jace. You think we forgot? Rocky lunged forward, barking like the devil himself had stepped into our doorway. Brad flinched. Mike backed up. You better call him off, Mike warned, but his voice cracked. I smiled. Funny. He only goes after threats. I could smell the whiskey on their breath. The kind of stench that never leaves a man's words clean. Brad tightened his grip. We came to remind you who you really are. Yeah, I said, stepping forward, bat in hand. And who's that? Mike sneered. The loser who cried when Dad smacked him. The punching bag who ran to dogs caused people scared him. We made you tough, Jace. Don't forget that. Rocky barked louder, and this time, he didn't stop. A neighbor's light flipped on. Curtains shifted. Somewhere in the distance, I heard sirens. Not close, but near enough. I stared them down. You taught me one thing, I said. Family doesn't always mean safety. Mike stepped closer. He's just a dog, Jace. You're gonna let him turn you against your blood? No, I said slowly. You did that when you locked him in the garage and tried to break into my home. Mike laughed, but it was hollow. Nobody's breaking in. We had a key. Dad gave it to us back when you were crashing. That hit hard. I remembered, months ago, when I was between places. I crashed at my dad's for 3 weeks. I'd left a spare key behind when I moved out. Never thought twice about it. Until now. I'm calling the cops, I said. Brad raised the tire iron like a bluff. You won't. Rocky snarled and took one sharp step forward. Brad dropped the iron like it burned him. I didn't hesitate. I stepped inside, slammed the door, locked all 3 bolts, and dialed 911. Calmly, slowly. My hands stopped shaking as I spoke to dispatch. There are 2 men at my door. One has a weapon. I know them. They're my brothers. 10 minutes later, red and blue lights flashed through the blinds. Rocky didn't stop barking until the handcuffs clicked. The officers asked me what happened. I told them everything. About Thanksgiving. About the threats. About the key. I showed them the tire iron on my porch, the scratches on the lock, the text Brad sent 3 days ago that read, "Hope that dog's tougher than you." That was enough. Trespassing. Intent to intimidate. Criminal threats. The officers nodded. You want to press charges? I looked down at Rocky. He sat beside me, alert but calm now, tail flicking against the tile. That dog. He didn't just warn me. He protected me. Yes, I said. I'm pressing charges. They took them both. Cuffed, cursing, and suddenly so small. And here's the wild part. My dad showed up at the station. Not to bail them out. To accuse me of betraying the family. You brought outsiders into this. He spat over the phone the next day. You called the cops on your own blood. I called the cops on 2 criminals, I said. And blood doesn't give anyone the right to break in and threaten me. He hung up. No apology. No regret. Just silence. But something shifted in me that night. I didn't tremble. I didn't cry. I felt free. Like finally, I'd unshackled something that had been clamped on my chest for 30 years. Because it wasn't just Rocky who barked back. It was me. The morning after the break-in felt like walking through smoke. Everything was quiet, but nothing felt settled. I stood in my living room staring at the couch where I'd slept the night before, Bat still leaning against the wall, Rocky curled up on my gym hoodie like nothing had happened. But the silence wasn't peace. It was pressure, like something still lurked. Then my phone lit up. You're overreacting, my dad texted. No apology. No mention of Mike and Brad. Just, family handles things internally. You made this worse than it had to be. Worse? Worse than them trying to break into my apartment? I didn't reply. I wasn't doing this dance anymore. Instead, I did something I'd never done before. I called a lawyer. Took me 30 minutes to find someone affordable who specialized in restraining orders and family assault. I told her the whole story, the Thanksgiving shove, the garage, the break-in, the threats, the key that was never returned. She listened. Then she said calmly, "We can file today." We did. It was surreal sitting in a beige office filling out forms to keep my own flesh and blood 500 feet away from me. But when I wrote their names under the persons to be restrained section, something clicked in my brain like a deadbolt sliding shut. I wasn't their pawn anymore. Later that night, I went digging. I needed proof. Just in case. I opened the beat-up Rubbermaid bin I kept in the corner of my closet. I hadn't touched it in years. It was full of old photos, fight posters, letters from my mom before she left Ohio for good. But there, at the bottom, I found my old phone, the one I'd used during my last year living at home. I plugged it in, waited, and when it buzzed back to life, the floodgates opened. Text threads, voicemails. One from Brad, back in 2019. "Don't come back here if you're going to act like a little b*** TCH about dad hitting you." That's how we all learned. Another from Mike. "If you're not tough enough for this family, maybe go cry with the dogs at the pound." I sat there with Rocky next to me, reading every toxic receipt. It wasn't just emotional ammo, it was documentation. A history of belittlement. Threats. Gaslighting that went on for years. And I realized, this wasn't new. This was a cycle I'd escaped because of a dog. Rocky stirred, rested his head on my lap. That mutt, with his scarred ear and mismatched eyes, had better instincts than any human I'd known growing up. He didn't run when I yelled. He didn't flinch when I cried. He didn't betray me in the name of tough love. I went back to the lawyer with the messages and voicemails. She raised her eyebrows and said, "We'll submit this with the affidavit." And I'd advise filing for a no-contact clause on top of the RO. Done. But the retaliation didn't take long. 3 days later, while leaving work, I saw it. My tires slashed. All four. A jagged piece of metal left under the windshield, duct-taped with a note. "Real men don't run to cops." No signature. But I knew. The mechanic in me went cold with rage. You can mess with me, but messing with my car? That was sacred. I filed a police report. Again. And this time, I didn't just name them. I showed the messages, the threats, the restraining order. The officers took it seriously. Said they'd look into traffic cams, check nearby shops for surveillance. For once, I didn't feel dismissed. Then came the hearing. The day I stood in court with Rocky waiting at home, I faced them. Mike and Brad didn't even try to dress nice. Same cocky expressions, same crossed arms. Dad sat behind them, stone-faced like the ghost of every beating I'd taken growing up. The judge reviewed the restraining order request. I laid out everything. Dates, screenshots, voice recordings, the break-in, the tire slashing. When the judge asked if I feared for my safety, I didn't hesitate. Yes, I said, because they don't believe in boundaries. Or consequences. Brad rolled his eyes. Mike laughed out loud. Bad move. The judge snapped. Laugh again, and I'll hold you in contempt. That shut them up. By the end of it, the RO was granted. 6 months, minimum. Could be extended. And for the first time in years, I walked out of a courthouse not feeling like a criminal, but like a man finally taking his life back. When I got home, Rocky met me at the door, tail thumping, ears perked. I knelt down, wrapped my arms around him, and whispered, "We're good now, bud. They don't come near us again." But just when I thought I could breathe, a letter showed up in my mailbox. Unmarked envelope. No return address. Inside was a photo. Me, from behind, at the courthouse. Rocky sitting in the window behind me. And a note. Still watching. That mutt can't protect you forever. My blood ran cold. Who the hell sent it? Mike and Brad were dumb, but not this subtle. Someone else was playing a deeper game. And suddenly, I realized I wasn't done fighting. I didn't sleep the night that photo came. I sat by the front window with the lights off, a baseball bat across my lap, Rocky curled up by my feet, but alert. He could feel it too, something off. Something circling. That photo, it wasn't taken by accident. The angle, the distance. Someone knew my building, my unit, my dog. And they timed it perfectly. It wasn't Mike or Brad. I was sure of it. They were loud, messy, dumb. This was calculated. At 3:14 a.m., my phone buzzed. No caller ID. Just a single message. Heard you're filing charges. Might want to stop digging. I didn't even flinch this time. I just screen recorded the message, saved it in a folder with the rest of my evidence, and texted my lawyer. New threat. Adding it in. Still, I couldn't shake the question. Who else hates me this much? Then a memory hit. Thanksgiving night, before everything blew up, I'd gone into the garage to let Rocky out. In that moment of chaos, I remember hearing something weird. Whispers coming from behind the shed. A voice, but not one I could place. And then another. Chuck. My dad's old buddy from his trucking days. Chuck was the kind of guy you didn't leave your wallet around. Had a record longer than a CVS receipt. He and Dad had fallen out years ago over a business deal gone bad. But 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, I saw him hanging around the house again, drinking beers with Brad and whispering behind the garage. Could it be him? Was Chuck the watcher? The next morning, I walked into the police station, Rocky's leash in one hand, the manila envelope in the other. I handed over the threat, the photo, and a list of names, Chuck included. The detective, a tall guy named Sanders, raised an eyebrow. You think your dad's buddy might be involved? I don't think, I said. I know something's not right. They're not smart enough to pull this off alone. He scribbled some notes. You're not wrong. Your tires, same kind of slashing we've seen in 2 break-ins tied to a guy named Charles Breen. Chuck, right? I nodded. That's him. Detective Sanders leaned back. We'll pay him a visit. In the meantime, get a camera on your front door. And maybe stay somewhere else for a while. I thought about that. But no, I'm not the one who needs to run. Instead, I did the opposite. I bought cameras, 2 outside, 1 facing the hallway, 1 above Rocky's bed. I also installed a secondary lock inside. then took a shift off work just to watch. That night, 2:06 a.m., Camera 1 picked up movement near the trash bins. Someone in a hoodie crouched down low. He didn't go for the door. He went for my car. I zoomed in. Gloves. Crowbar. Thin build. I dialed 911. Whispered the address. By the time the cruiser arrived, the guy took off, but not before Rocky stood up and started barking like a war siren. He knew the sound of threat, and the cops took off in the direction he ran. 15 minutes later, they called me. We got him. His name's Charles Breen. Had your address in his pocket. The next day, I pressed charges. Chuck confessed to the photo. Said Mike paid him $600 and a bottle of Jack to shake me up. He admitted to the tire slashing, the surveillance, even trying to scare Rocky. Trying. But that wasn't all. He also admitted that Brad had given him a key, a copy of my old apartment key. The same one I'd lost months ago and thought I just misplaced. They planned this. They didn't just want to scare me. They wanted to wreck my life. To put me back in the cage I'd crawled out of. That realization hit harder than any punch I'd taken in the ring. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. I was hunted by the very people who swore blood meant something. Later that week, my lawyer filed a motion to extend the restraining order indefinitely. She also helped me sue for damages, not just emotional trauma, but property, vet bills, missed work, everything. And the case? It made headlines locally. Boxer breaks family's silence. Charges filed after Thanksgiving assault. The messages. The threats. The break-in. The dog locked in the garage. It all came out in court. My dad didn't show. Mike and Brad were escorted out by deputies when they called the judge soft. Chuck pled guilty to harassment and unlawful surveillance. Got sentenced to 6 months and 3 years probation. Me? I walked out of that courtroom with my dignity intact. The same day, I signed a lease on a new gym in Cincinnati. The owner had seen my court interview online and offered me a fresh start, plus free rent for Rocky. I packed my bags that night. No long goodbye. And as I closed the trunk of my car, Rocky jumped in the front seat like he knew. This time, we were leaving for good. But as we pulled onto the highway, I couldn't help looking back at the rear view one last time. Not for fear, but for closure. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't running away from something. I was running towards someone. The road to Cincinnati was smooth, but my chest was heavy. It wasn't just the legal battles behind me, or the threats, or even the loss of family. I could handle that. It was the question I couldn't stop asking. Why did it take this long? Why did I need to be shoved, mocked, broken into, and nearly destroyed, just to say I was done? Maybe it's because when you grow up being told that toughness is silence, and silence is love, you start believing bruises mean, I care, and insults mean, I notice you. That's what I was running from now. I pulled into the new gym around 7 a.m. It smelled like iron, sweat, and possibility. The owner, Reggie, met me at the front door. Tall, ex-Marine type with a handshake like a steel beam and a pit bull named Daisy trailing him like a shadow. Rocky barked once, low and curious. Daisy didn't flinch. They'll get along, Reggie grinned. Dogs know good souls when they see one. That day, I didn't unpack much. Just set up Rocky's bed, tossed my gloves into the locker, and ran my hands across the ring ropes like they were old scars I was finally proud of. But peace never stays too long, not when you come from war. That night, while eating takeout and scrolling through emails, one popped up. No subject, no sender, just a single line. Hope Rocky's watching your back. See you soon. Attached, a photo of me at the gas station 20 minutes earlier. Same jacket, same car, same timestamp. I dropped the phone. Rocky, sensing my panic, stood up and pressed his head against my leg. They weren't done. I drove back to the station the next morning, but even Detective Sanders said, with Chuck locked up and the brothers under court order, it could be anyone. Anyone? That's the thing about trauma. It leaves back doors open in your mind. Ones your enemies can always slip through. I didn't sleep for 3 nights. 4th night, I heard a noise. Not outside. Inside. Rocky barked once, then sprinted toward the back kitchen. I grabbed the bat again, heart thudding so loud I couldn't hear my own thoughts. The door was ajar. The inside door. No broken window. No forced entry. But on the floor? A shoelace. Brad used to tie those dumb knots when we were kids. Left them all over the garage, like trophies of his boredom. I recognized the loop immediately. I called 911 again. This time, the cops brought prints. They dusted the knob, the table, even the bathroom light switch. The next day, confirmation. Brad's fingerprints. That was a direct violation of the restraining order. One that came with real jail time. I could have collapsed from the relief, but I didn't. I trained instead. For the first time in months, I stepped into the ring. Not to prove anything. Not to fight anyone. Just to feel my own weight again, my control. Every punch I threw was a memory leaving my body. Mike's laughter. Dad's silence. Brad's shove. Chuck's threats. The garage. The tire slashes. The look on Rocky's face when they locked him away like he didn't matter. I screamed when I hit that last punch. Didn't even know I had that sound in me. Reggie stood by the ropes and just nodded. Later that week, I got the call I didn't expect. A journalist. Local radio. Said they'd heard my story from someone in the station and wanted to feature me on a segment about men, mental health, and healing. Normally, I'd say no. Hide. Shrink. But this time, I said yes. I told them everything. About Rocky. About being mocked. About how soft saved my life. How love came in a form that barked instead of spoke. How pain taught me how to fight, but love taught me how to stop fighting the wrong people. The segment aired 2 days later. Emails poured in. Men, women, vets, ex-athletes, single moms, foster kids. One said, "I never cried until I heard how you cried for that dog. Now I cry for myself too." And that's when it hit me. All those years, I thought weakness was the enemy. Turns out, shame was. The shame they planted in me for caring, for nurturing, for choosing to protect instead of punish. But I wasn't carrying shame anymore. I had Rocky, and Rocky carried me. As court day came around, I showed up early. Brad didn't. An arrest warrant was issued. Mike tried to call me through a third party, my cousin Jenna. Said he wanted to apologize, meet up, talk things through. I blocked her. Blocked them all. Some stories don't need epilogues. Some families don't need fixing. Sometimes, the apology is in the leaving. And I was long gone. The day I walked into that courthouse for the final hearing, I wasn't nervous. I wasn't angry. I was clear. Rocky sat outside with Reggie while I went in alone. I didn't bring friends. No cheering section. Just a folder in one hand and calm in the other. My brothers weren't in court. Only their lawyer, some smug, overconfident guy who looked like he played golf with judges on the weekend. He tried to paint me as emotionally unstable, said I had a history of overreacting, and even brought up my boxing matches as proof I had aggression issues. I didn't flinch. When the judge asked if I had a statement, I didn't pull out notes. I looked straight ahead and told the truth. I told them how they mocked me for years, how silence was our only family language, how Thanksgiving ended with a dog in a cold garage and a man stripped of dignity. I described the break-in, the threats, the shoelace on the kitchen floor. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry, because when you've already walked through the fire, smoke doesn't scare you. The judge listened, and then she believed me. Restraining order? Made permanent. Brad's violation? Warrant upheld. The remaining civil case? Pending. But something shifted in that room. I didn't walk out victorious. I walked out unburdened. Outside, Rocky was asleep on Reggie's feet. When he saw me, he perked up, tail thumping like a drum roll to a brand new life. We drove back to the gym where I'd been renting a small room upstairs. That night, Reggie slid an envelope under my door. Inside, a note. "You're more than muscle. Teach the kids. You're hired." The next morning, I opened the gym for the first time on my own. Turned on the lights. Opened the doors. Laid out the gloves. 5 kids showed up. One had a black eye. Another didn't say a word the entire hour. I saw myself in every one of them. After class, I sat outside on the steps, Rocky beside me, watching the sun hit the pavement like forgiveness. But just as peace settled in, a white SUV pulled up slow. Tinted windows. Ohio plates. My blood ran cold. The window rolled down, and it was him. Brad. Sunglasses. Smirk. Calm like he hadn't broken into my life, my home, my trust. I stood. He didn't say anything for a long time. Just stared. Then, "You're really doing this, huh? Making me the villain." "You are the villain," I said, stepping forward. He shook his head. "We raised you. Took you to practices. Paid your way through school." "No," I cut him off. "You survived me. And you resented me for not sinking like you did." Rocky growled low. Brad flinched. Then he said, "You've changed." I smiled. "That's the point." He pulled away. No threats. No closure. Just silence. And for once, I was okay with that. A week later, the gym posted my story online. It went viral, hundreds of thousands of views. Messages poured in from all over the country. Men saying they finally understood why they felt empty. Women thanking Rocky for protecting me when no one else would. Teens asking how to sign up for class. And one night, I got a letter. No name. Just a drawing of a dog with boxing gloves. Inside, a single line. You saved more than just Rocky. I looked down at the real Rocky, sleeping next to my bag, breathing slow and steady, like he always did when he knew I was safe. This wasn't a comeback. This was arrival. Because the truth is, sometimes it takes losing everything to realize what's worth holding on to. Not blood, not tradition, not silence, but loyalty. And Rocky? Rocky never let go. Subscribe if you believe loyalty isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when no one else does.